Okay. Hello, I'm Julie Orvis, and I am the coordinator of special events at Historic Deerfield and bringing you today's episode of Celebrating Our Ambassadors. That introduces a few of our volunteers to our friends and followers. Our ambassadors give their time and with a variety of talents. Today, I'm talking with 4 of our wreath-making volunteers. Wreath-making is a project at Historic Deerfield that is entirely run by volunteers, and they are the largest group of volunteers. On the Monday and Tuesday after Thanksgiving each year, in 2 workshops, 40 to 60 people gather at the Deerfield Community Center to create wreaths that are hung in 33 houses and buildings in up to 64 different locations. The wreaths are completely made with natural materials. Though the last wreath season in 2019 was not affected by COVID. We weren't in that situation yet. We did have a big snowstorm on December 1st that delayed the workshop a day and created some havoc. And so having a plan B for the project is a familiar to these volunteers. For this year's season, we are expecting that COVID protocols could still be in place at the workshops on November 30th and December, and I am planning for that to be the case. But we are going to be doing the wreaths again this year. The wreath makers here today have been making wreaths for 9 years or more. So longer than I've been managing the program. Sarah Hollister of Coleraine started making wreaths at the beginning of the program in 2000. Does that sound right, Sarah?
Like that.
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah, and Sheila and Rick Kelly of Greenfield began making wreaths in 2011, and Jude Bishop from Winchester, New Hampshire, began also making wreaths in 2011. As you see as you'll see with the pictures I'll be sharing, they are all very artistic and creative wreath makers. So starting with you, Sarah, how did you first get connected with the wreath program, and what motivated you to say yes to whoever asked you to come on board, which I expect was probably Tinka?
You are correct. I think it was Tinka who told me about it. It was a totally new program, and I only know because John LaSalle's father was one of the first people who did wreaths. He and his wife did a wreath that first year that I did one. And basically, I've been making wreaths since I don't know how long, a long time. And I figured, well, I like Deerfield. The houses are interesting, and I have some ancestors there, so I figured I'd make wreaths.
Yes. And so you've been doing. And so Rick and Sheila, how did you get connected with the wreath making project back in 2011?
We had made some wreaths on our own, and I happened to pick up, actually I still have it, the calendar that listed.
Okay, one of our old-fashioned calendars from many years ago. That's amazing.
Yeah, that listed the wreath making workshop. And we thought, well, we'll brush up our skills, we'll learn how to do it better, and it'd be fun to do it with a group of people.
It's a nice non-commercial lead into the holidays.
And plus, we'd been at Historic Deerfield before, and we had just moved to Greenfield, and we thought it would be a nice way to start the holiday season.
Great.
And we've enjoyed it over the years.
Great. And Jude, how did you get connected and get started back then?
Well, one of the things I know Rick and Sheila for many years, and I had just retired. I love history. I love collecting and making things, wreaths, that type of thing. So when they offered it, I said, well, gee, that sounds like a really interesting thing. So that's how I did it. So I joined the same time they did because of that.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen now with our little pictures. So my first picture here is, okay, there's Rick and Sheila making their wreaths. This is actually back from 2 or 3 years ago. And then Jude, the year that this is a couple of years ago. And one of the things that all of you do is you bring your own materials. So Historic Deerfield has all the branches, and I get some winter berry and so on. but everybody brings decorations to share. And of course, Jude, that's your basket, I believe, that I captured. So
Yeah, it's my basket. Yes.
and then this is last year's production. So there's Sarah with her big wreath that we put on the Flint Center. So, so Sarah, you usually work at home, but you had to come in and make the wreath at the Deerfield because we can't get that big frame.
Yeah,
in
you
my
couldn't fit
car.
it in your car. Yeah. Oh, well, that's okay. More room there anyway. And I left the mess there rather than at my house.
That's right. That's right.
It looks bigger than you are.
I know. That's not hard.
And there's Rick's wreath from last year that he made 2 of those full-size wreaths that we put on the visitor center and Hall Tavern on the false front doors there, which are in a big showcase place. And this is Jude's wreath from last year that was on the ramp door going into the visitor center. And then there's Sheila with her wreath that was also put on Hall Tavern on the south door going to Orientation Theater. And one of the things that I noticed when I was going through these pictures is this pods. And also the birch bark things. And those are decorations from previous years. And that's one of the hallmarks of this, is that we do save the decorations from year to year. And so they get repurposed. And those pods showed up in 2016. And that'll look familiar because Sarah, you made that wreath. That was a double wreath for the Sheldon house. And what inspired you to make the pod wreaths?
Well, I do gardens for people, and one of my clients has 2 lotus ponds. So I had the pods, and I've done things with milkweed before. And I thought, hey, I'll just give it a try. I like to try something new.
Okay, so for some reason my screen is like automatically moving forward. So
You have it set to
these
slide.
are just this is the birch bark, the birch bark ones that Elaine Higgins made in 2017, and then how it came, and of course you so on. So those are the wreaths, and this is how we save them. At the end of the season, we have a big dismantling party. And so you can see Suzanne Paris is in the middle of your wreath, breaking down that big wreath that you made, Sarah. And you know what that's like, because the first time we had that big wreath, you were the one who broke it down, and somebody else who had made it. What do you have a memory about that?
I do, because it was all stapled together. So I had to use pliers to pull out these heavy staples. So it was quite a project.
Right. So when you took on doing the big Flint Center wreath, you used a different type of wire. It was a heavy.
I did use a different wire that was easier to get off.
Right. And although Sarah really had to sit down in the middle of your wreath, she appreciated that.
I
But
bet.
anyway, but that's how we were able to save all those decorations. And so this is where they all are. There's been in my storage downstairs in my basement here at the Dwight House in Old Deerfield. And my prediction for the 2020 wreath is this bag of decorations right there. And they are the stars that Rick made last year. Those are fabulous stars. So Rick, what made you think to put together, and it almost looks like a little origami, but you're kind of sculpting these little stars from birch bark.
Well, actually, it's a Baltic tradition.
Ah, okay. Yeah, is there, so your family are Baltic, or you just,
No.
it's something that you just found out about and decided to try it?
Yeah, I just thought it would look good.
Yeah, and it did. And you can see I have a full bag of them. So I think that we still have all those lotus pods, and lots of people pick up. I only showed like one wreath per year for the lotus pods, but people really use those. And you see the other thing I think is going to be go-to is that we got red dogwood tree twigs that people really use a lot of, and I think that they're staying very well. I think they're going to be used as well. So here's my favorite wreaths when I went through the pictures from past years.
Mm.
So Jude, this is your wreath from 2018. We put on the
Oh,
Allen
right.
House, and it's made with the grapevine wreath frame that now did you pick that up at a garden store, or did you make that yourself, the grapevine thing?
No, I'm one of these people that walks in the woods and just picks up a lot of stuff and I bring it home and so I always collect grapevines and I always when I'm walking think about the things that I might want to bring in November or December to these. So that's what you see there is just collections of stuff that I've collected.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised because I had forgotten I had done this one.
Yeah.
And those are my neighbors. My neighbor has 40 guinea hens, so there's a lot of feathers on my property.
Right, and of course, so you brought guinea hens, and also the Campbells, Don and Judy Campbell have guinea hens, and they brought guinea hen feathers over the years, and so we still have those. We took off the part of the decorations that won't last, but the grapevine wreath frames still exist. So nobody used them.
No.
Nobody used them last year, but who knows? Somebody might use them there. And this is on the Williams house in 2014. And Sarah, this is one of my favorites that you did with the
Can't even remember doing it.
yeah, the corn cob, and that's chili peppers.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at it today because it's not the Williams family that this house is, but of course the modern Williams family who's lived here in Deerfield were great corn farmers, and so it's interesting that you had corn cobs.
Mm.
They're
But
also an ancestor of mine, Williams and Sheldon. So that's pretty much the whole village.
yeah, right. You're related to everybody here somehow.
Yeah, I think so.
And this is my other favorite one, again, doing an ancestor at the Bement house. One of your great-great-grandmother was born at the Bement
My
house?
great-grandmother was born in that Bement house. So
And that's the Bement house.
that's her picture in the little tree.
Yeah, right. And the Bement house is part of Bement School. That's their administration building. And this is the one I picked from Sheila that we put on the Stebbins house in 2016. And I'm thinking now, what kind of these are
Just
garlic flowers.
garlic chives.
Garlic chives.
Yes.
Yeah.
We grow a lot of them, and it's one of the few things that blooms in August. But what contains the seeds dries very nicely, and although it looks very fragile, I think it held up pretty well. I was surprised.
Yeah, and of course the Stebbins house is one of the really visible doors that we have. It's the one. It's in the brick house. It's right across the street from the Deerfield Inn. And
You
then
have garlic chive everywhere?
We have them everywhere.
You'd be
I know,
amazed.
they do go
They
everywhere.
spread like crazy.
Yeah, I love Korean cooking. I love the garlic chive pancakes, and so I have about a 4-foot wide row in my raised bed.
So, and Rick, this is one of my favorite wreaths of yours here. It's a full-size double at the Memorial Libraries. This is the up close. This was in 2016.
Yeah.
And I can always count on you having the Floribunda rose hips. So like, that's like one of your go-to decorations every year. And you bring lots of those.
Well, they're not as bright as the winter berries, but they seem to hold together better.
Yeah. And of course I end up having to buy winter berries because everybody loves them. And, and they because I don't have a place to get them. And then the other thing, this is a picture of your pole bean frame that you sent, Sarah, to us.
Oh, my bean grotto.
Your bean grotto, right, in response to our Makers Monday on growing beans. And I said, well, I have to include that because it relates to your bean pod wreaths that were at the Furry House that we put last year, which also I thought were fabulous, that you did with the dried larkspur and the dried bean pods.
Was my blue and white nod to the arts and crafts.
the arts and crafts movement, right? So those are the pictures. So so obviously our public can see that those are just a smattering of the wreaths that you've made over the years, and how delightfully creative they have been. So tell me, what's your favorite thing about being part of the wreath making crew? So Jude, why don't we start with you?
I think one of the things I really enjoy is the community. I look and sometimes I'll see people that I know and like Sheila and Rick and the other folks, but there's always young people, there's always new people. So there's just a real community feel, and it's something that I put it on my calendar and I just look forward to, because it's like going home. We're all there for a common purpose, and it's just a really wonderful, warm feeling that I have from doing this. And it's creative. I get to see my friends, and I also get to contribute in a way that really is special. I also have to add, every Christmas Day, my partner and I go down and we walk the streets and we see each one of the wreaths. So I not only see them as they're being made, but I also see the effects, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful community experience.
Great. Well, that's great. And of course, we make a flyer for people to now, and I reorganized it this past year so that it's actually set up for the wreath walk that starts at the Deerfield Inn, and you travel south on the west side of the river and of the street, and all the way down to the Wilson House, and then it goes on the east side of the river all the way up to the north end to the Wapping School, and then back to the Deerfield Inn. So I think that I've worked to reorganize how we present the wreaths. So, and Rick and Sheila, what's your favorite thing about the wreath making?
Well, I love that camaraderie that happens, being creative in the room with other people who are being creative. And, I, usually look at what other people are doing, and I've learned things over the years and seen how people put things together. And it's just such a nice, it's a nice feeling to be there. And it's kind of like being part of a quilting bee kind of thing. It's, it's a community activity. And also, I love that what we're creating goes up on the doors, and then we don't always necessarily go on Christmas Day, but we usually do take a tour of the village and see all the wreaths. And some of those days have been mighty cold. but
Yeah.
but we enjoy that. Just being part of it feels good.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your favorite part of it? He takes some pride in the wreaths that he creates.
I do a lot of handcraft stuff. I tie flies.
Right.
And my folks have always been handy with their hands. So it seems natural. And like I say, it's a non-commercial way to ease into the holiday season.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me.
Yeah, and I think that we like gathering the materials too, and
Yeah.
as things are,
Yeah.
flowers are going by, I'm thinking, oh, that might be nice as a dried accent, or
I collected the birch
spot
bark
things.
in September.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah. The birch bark got to be very popular. So Elaine Higgins is the other big birch bark fan, and she's always created a lot of decorations with that. And Sarah, what's your favorite thing? And of course, you started early, and you mostly have worked at home, but you, like I said, you were came to the workshop because you did the big wreath this year.
Yeah, I guess my favorite thing is when I pick a house, which I've done, I think, 9 different houses over the years. I like to find some architectural detail or history, like the Williams house one year, that beautiful window, that kind of eyebrow, and it looks like stars. So I made milkweed stars one year, just to kind of pull something from the architecture of the house into the wreath. So I kind of really am very conscious of what house I'm doing the wreath for as I'm making it, so I can kind of make it architecturally meld with it. So
Yeah. Right, and that's always one of the things that I always have loved about your Rees. But I think all four of you really kind of have that idea, because even though you may not, Rick and Sheila and Jude may not know exactly what you're going to do when you get there. I usually have a house that I'm going to assign you when you walk in the door. So you, so and that's something I appreciate, to be able to think about a house beforehand, and how we're going to decorate it, and so on. It's really and it's great to hear about the community, and the other thing, and I will be hopefully interviewing one of the Girl Scout moms and Girl Scouts, because I think in the last few years that having the Girl Scout troops there has really added a lot of young energy to the Monday night workshop. So, and that's going to sing. So the other thing, although the Rees themselves weren't affected by the pandemic, it's one of the things that we've been talking about in these volunteer interviews, is just like everything came to a screeching halt, and for all of us, and how has the pandemic and the quarantine, and now we're reopening, and how has that all affected you? So why don't we start with Sheila and Rick on that one, and move around.
Yeah, just in general, I've been working at home, and so I have a bit of experience with Zoom, because I've had a lot of meetings. But Rick goes out to work every day. And as far as the wreath making, I would assume, well, even if we don't gather together, we could do the wreath making at home and bring them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that we can make it work. And so I have no doubt. I would miss being in that big room with all of the smells of the greenery and all the activity, but I think we would make it work. But we'll you have to be fluid in these times. You have to be adaptable. And I think that's what it's teaching us all.
Yeah. Well, just kind of to respond to that, one, of course, what I've been working on as part of working at home for Historic Deerfield and planning events, is how we're going to be using the Deerfield Community Center once it's reopened, and how are the buildings going to be laid out, and what are the protocols that we have to have in that building. And we are running forums in the fall, so we're going to be having half-filled forums up to 50 people. So, and the Old Deerfield Painters Group are going to start their weekly meetings after Labor Day. They're not doing their art show this year, but they're going to start their weekly meetings. So after Labor Day, we'll be working again. And I do have an idea of how we're going to deal with wreath making and being able for people to get together. So I'll just say that much at this point. So, Sarah, how's the shutdown been for you?
Well, actually, I was able to work at home all winter because I got an office computer and just created new maps for my friend Dave's old map business. So basically, that was easy enough. I actually got more done at home without having to put out fires that he had me do at the office. So I was more productive. And then in the summer, spring to fall, I take care of people's gardens. I have some garden clients. So I'm fortunate to have had 2 jobs, and you can see where I am. I'm kind of socially distanced anyway. I'm out in Coleraine here in the back end of nowhere. So it's, I've just adapted. I've never been really, life hasn't changed all that much because I'm not going out to eat and movies and everything all the time. It's like my dad said, why go anywhere? We're here.
Right. And Jude, how's it been for you?
Well, I'm retired, and my partner works at a nursing home, so I've been sort of staying close to home and just sort of socially distancing. I have been thinking a lot about hoping that we will be able to some way get together, because one of the things I'm really missing is that community aspect in all parts of my life. So I've got a couple ideas, and I'm really looking forward to being able to get together. And what would I do without Tika's wonderful tea? Come on.
Right. That's right.
So yeah,
right.
So I'm really optimistic and hopeful that we'll figure out some way to do this. If not, then I'll make things here and I'll bring them in, certainly.
Well, that's great. Well, I will definitely be in touch with all of you in the fall with what the plans are, because my plan is to have an in-person wreath making workshop. So, because I know how important it is, and honestly, it's one of my favorite activities for the year as a staff person at Historic Deerfield, is really organizing this project. So, I would hate to see it go. It is one of the things that I really have fun doing.
You
So I
thought
have to,
about
go
have
ahead,
you,
Rick.
have you thought about doubling the sessions?
Yes, well, that's sort of where I'm going, is that to have 2 sessions on Monday and 2 sessions on Tuesday. That there's an afternoon and an evening session both of those
Spread
days.
them out more.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, and but it also means that in terms of the person who in Tinka Lunt's role of who she's been the coach, is to have I need another person that's going to take on her role to be able to do that. So, and maybe another assistant like Tom McDonald has been my non-wreath making assistant. He doesn't make a wreath, he just helps to do that. So there's some things I have to think about that way. So anyways, I want to end our conversation there, because we have gone over the time I originally allotted for this, but I think it's such a fascinating conversation. And I just want to say thank you very much for all of your commitment to the wreath making project over the years, and the beautiful wreaths that you've brought to historic Deerfield, and really made our buildings look great in the winter time. And it's a nice thing when we're not open, but people can still walk around the street and look at the wreaths and enjoy them. And all of you are very creative in the way you approach your wreaths, and they always fit the houses, and that's one of the things I can always count on. And I really appreciate that. So I just want to say that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right?
Cheers.
Thanks for organizing it.
Okay, so I'm